Today we are looking at all the Marvel comics published with a cover date of July 1963. Marvel Comics had now at this point been publishing superheroes in the Silver Age for a year and a half, and month by month we're getting a few more titles. This month you can see Marvel published 12 different comics in total, and 7 of them are superhero genre, so we're going to focus on those. And we're going to start with Amazing Spider-Man #3. We're going to talk about all the key points of this book, why it's important historically, and look at its rarity and its value and increase. So we get a whole coverage of not only what are the books that were being made by Stan Lee, but also where their role is in collecting comics. Amazing Spider-Man #3, major early key of possibly Marvel's most successful title of all time. And this is a major key book. Cover appearance, we've got the first appearance of Doc Ock, Dr. Octopus. And this is a 12-cent cover price book, features the origin of Otto Octavius. And this story also features the Human Torch and Flash Thompson and J. Jonah Jameson. This book had a print run estimated at 175,000 copies. Sales are starting to pick up. The words got out. The Amazing Spider-Man is a great read. Looking at the CGC census, you can see how it's really been moving up in the last decade. Copies have tripled in all grades, but there's only 11 9.6 or better. This book is extremely hard to find in high grade, which you're going to find is the case with all the books we're going to showcase today. Heritage has sold a lot of copies. The Overstreet Annual Price Guide has grades every year for raw copies that are not graded. And you can see over the last 2 decades, in low grade, the book has doubled. And in high grade has tripled. It's really taken off. And of course, if you want to see how the book is doing now, check out ebay.com, check out past sales in all conditions. And also the gpanalysis.com, you can find out about copies that have been graded. And of course, the highest graded copies are going to be bringing record sales all the time. So overall on the census, we've got a lot of copies. There's only 2 9.8s and 9 9.6s. Also note that in Britain, there's a UK price variant with pence instead of cents. Only 25 copies have been graded. It's extremely rare. The highest copy is an 8.5. The next book that came out this month, also written by Stan Lee, we have Fantastic Four #16. This was Marvel's flagship title. It was now being published monthly. Notice this is the 62nd Marvel Silver Age hero comic published since they started just a year and a half earlier. This book features the first ever crossover for Ant-Man. He's in this book. And there is a cameo of the Wasp in this book. Notice on the census, this one's a lot lower numbers of graded copies in all conditions, but even in 9.6 or better, there's only 4 copies. Here's a nice cover with sort of a pinkish orange background cover. Ant-Man and Dr. Doom on the cover. Overstreet Price Guide. The book has gone up about 2.5 times in low grade, but notice it's still a very affordable book, under $100 in the guide for a 2.0. In high grade, you will see that the book has gone up 4 times in price for raw 9.2 copies. And on the census in total, there is only 1 9.8 in existence and 3 9.6s. And again, the UK price variant, only 7 copies graded in total, with 7.5 is the highest graded copy. Also this month, you'll notice that Marvel and Stan Lee were still very successful with putting out Westerns and teen and romance type titles. So you'll see a few of those were also coming out this month. We're only featuring the superhero issues on today's episode, like Journey into Mystery #94. This has a United Nations cover, Jack Kirby art, and look who's on the cover. We've got Thor and Loki. Early appearance of the two together, and very few copies graded. Only 214 in all conditions, and only 2 9.6s. And in the Overstreet Price Guide, the book has doubled over the last 16 years. Still very affordable, under $50 for a low-grade copy. High grade, the book has gone up about 3.5 times for raw 9.2. On the census, this book does not have a single 9.8. There are two 9.6s. And even the UK price variant is very hard to find. Only one copy graded in total, and it grades only a 5. Also released this month, we have Sgt Fury and his Howling Commandos. Now, this wasn't a superhero title at the time, but we're including it because, of course, Sgt Fury would eventually become part of the Marvel superhero universe. So we're going to take a look at this one, Sgt Fury #2. And again, being a war title, very few collectors focused on this title compared to the superhero titles, so this one's extremely hard to find. It does have a Nazi swastika cover and Jack Kirby cover art. 179 copies graded in all conditions with only one 9.6 or better. Extremely hard to find in high grade. In the Overstreet price guide, it's not been moving that much. It hasn't even doubled over 16 years in lower grades. And in high grades, it's about tripled. On the census, there is one 9.8, no 9.6s, and 5 9.4s, and no UK price variants of this book have been graded at all. Strange Tales 110 came out this month, one of the most important comic books ever published. This is the first appearance of Doctor Strange, but he is not featured on the cover. The story drawn by Steve Ditko. Also the first appearance of the Ancient One in this book. Human Torch was featured on the cover, as always. This was his 10th issue in a row, being solo stories. Print run estimated at 189,000 copies for this. This was one of Marvel's best-selling titles. The Human Torch appears in 2 different titles every month for Marvel. Still seems to be Marvel's biggest title that Stan Lee is pushing. On the census, copies have really jumped up, especially since we started getting Doctor Strange movies. 1,588 copies graded total, only 6 9.6 or better. Heritage sales definitely increasing. Overstreet price guide, this book has really taken off. It started to really move around 2014, of course, when the movie news started hitting. So this book has done great in all conditions. It's gone up 6 times in lowest grade, and in high grade, you can see it's gone up about 11 times in the last 17 years. Really a hot mover, this book. On the census, there are no 9.8s. There are 6 9.6s. And the UK price variant, this being such a big key, 26 copies have been graded, but only one 8.5 at the top of the list. And so again, a major book. That is the most valuable book that was published this month for collectors. Next on our list is Tales of Suspense 43. This book features the 5th appearance of Iron Man and has a Jack Kirby cover. And backup features have Steve Ditko and Larry Lieber art. On the census, we have 343 copies graded, but only 2 9.6s or better. Heritage sales not too strong, so not a lot of people collecting that highly 5th appearances. However, this is a very early key Iron Man book. Nice Jack Kirby cover. And in the Overstreet price guide, you'll see it hasn't been moving that fast. It's only doubled in low grade in the last 16 years raw, but it has gone up about 3.5 times in higher grade raw. On the census, there are no 9.8s. There are 2 9.6s, and there are only 3 copies of the UK price variant graded, the highest being an 8.0. And on our list, Tales to Astonish number 45 came out, featuring the 2nd appearance of the Wasp and Egghead. Jack Kirby cover as always. He was super busy with Stan Lee writing like crazy at this time, putting out 12 titles this month. Not many copies graded, though, of this one. 213 in total, with 7 9.6s. And there's our classic cover. In the Overstreet price guide, this book is very cheap, the cheapest on our list today, and the book is still under $30 in low grade, has not even doubled in 16 years. High grade, the book has roughly almost tripled, but still very affordable even in high grades. On the census, we have 3 9.8s and 4 9.6s. Very lucky, amazing that many have survived. And only 1 UK price variant graded at all, and it's an 8.5. So there you go. That's the 7 superhero genre books that were published this month. Now let's compare the books by looking at the CGC census. We notice some interesting things, such as the rarity and the popularity of these books. Amazing Spider-Man #3, first appearance of Dr. Octopus, has more copies graded than the first appearance of Doctor Strange. So that's quite interesting, since Strange Tales 1 to 10 is worth way more money. What else do we notice? It was interesting how many copies on this list do not have a single 9.8. 9.8s are very rare. Only 4 of the books have a 9.8, so that means 3 of them didn't. On the census, you can see the average number of copies, and you can usually tell which books speculators and collectors are focusing on based on the lower grade average. And what book has the lowest grade on this list? It's Amazing Spider-Man #3. Average grade on the CGC census is only a 4.5. The book with the highest average grade is Tales to Astonish 45 with a 6.9. And again, why is that? Because there's so few copies graded. And which book has the least amount copies graded? Out of the superhero books, it is Sgt Fury #2. Again, technically a war title. So if we don't count that one, it again is going to be Tales to Astonish 45 with only 213 copies graded. And just for comparison's sake, just to show you how few non-superhero books get graded, I put Millie the Model 115 on the list. You can see only 2 copies graded in any conditions, and the top one being a 9.2. So that's kind of interesting. So there you go. There's our books for July 1963 cover date. These are all 12-cent cover price books, all written by Stan Lee, a classic era. The Marvel Universe is starting to grow more and more. I'd like to thank you for watching. Remember, every episode I focus on a different month. We learn some comic book history and tips on collecting and why you should collect these historic books. You can learn more about comic book collecting at my website, terryhawkness.com. And of course, go to CBSI website, comicbookinvest.com, where you can also learn and read from thousands of cool comic-related articles. Thanks for watching.